Are you an executive director or VP who's felt the impossible pressure to keep up joy and energy for your mission, even when you're stretched thin? Maybe you're wrestling with how to get your board and major donors to see the real world impact of the work beyond the numbers. Or maybe you're just wondering how to take small acts of kindness and turn them into a sustainable, growing movement. Well, in this episode, we're going to talk to Kelly Krenzel, the Chief Joy Maker and Executive Director of Hope Blooms. They're a nonprofit that's mastered the art of building an entire organization on vulnerability and authentic connection. You'll learn how to move beyond transactional relationships, lead with intentional vulnerability, to attract and retain high-hearted volunteers, and understand the simple framework that takes a momentary spark of kindness into a world-changing mission. If you're looking to refuel your passion and gain actionable strategies for deep relational donor engagement, stick around. This is about making your impact so clear it drives action.
Over the rainbow.
Kelly Krenzel, welcome to Tell All the Podcast. Oh, that's the intro.
I thought you were getting ready to do it. Oh, okay. This is silence.
So Kelly Krenzel, welcome to Tell All the Podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. Little slow on the uptick, but I'll get there.
You know what? It is a Tuesday, and I think Tuesdays are the new Monday.
I would agree.
I think that you and I might be similar, where Mondays we're so excited to get going with the week, and we're like, we have all the energy in the world. We're ready to go. Mm-hmm. And then Tuesday is like a reality check and being like, you have more than you can do in a week to do.
Yeah. Also, your email is unhinged. Get your email in order, girlfriend.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That feels so true. The last 2 Sundays, I have been in the office for like a couple of hours being like, I'm just going to get my email down to 1 or 2.
It's magical, isn't it?
Until the end of the day, Monday, when you're like, there's 28 emails in here. What am I doing?
Yeah, you like go through it on a Sunday, even if you're not like working, and you're like, okay, let's totally got this. And then, in through Monday, and it's a disaster.
So we jumped right into it. But Kelly, for people that don't know who you are, can you give us a little introduction of who is Kelly?
It's a complicated question. No.
I love that I just saw your brain glitch a little bit. Oh God,
like,
this
what
is a therapy
should this
session.
go? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll try to keep it. I'll try to keep it on the straight and narrow. Well, I am the founder and executive director here in Fargo of Hope Blooms, and we are a nonprofit organization, and our whole mission is to spread joy and create community through the tangible gift of flowers. All of our flowers are donated, so using donated flowers to create bedside bouquets and take those out as a connection point to meeting individuals in our community who just need a little extra love, or are facing isolation or loneliness, or facing some sort of hardship, and just saying, you matter, and showing up for them in whichever way is the most helpful in that moment. And I think there are few things sweeter than someone out there just really trying to make your day intentionally. And I think it's extra sweet when it's someone you don't know, and you can feel that love from your collective community cares about you. I think there's a lot of power in that. So
Kelly, you are in the Two Timers Club.
Oh yes.
Wait, that sounds bad. Two Timers.
On the Tell Well podcast.
You're the Tell Well podcast Two Timers Club, which is a great club to be in.
It's the best, honestly.
And so if you want to hear more of Kelly's story, and specifically the origin story, jump back to episode 15, because it's a great story, including how her grandma, a stack of recycled jars, and a little spark of postpartum inspiration started it all. And so that is on episode 15 from season 1. But today I'm hoping that we can go beyond that story a little bit and talk about what happens kind of after hope takes root. And so to kick us off, you've said before that Hope Blooms is so much more than flowers, and it is. It is more than flowers. And it's about reminding people that they matter. And you just talked about like those little sparks of joy, those little bits. I'm wondering if you can unpack that for us a bit. What does more than flowers mean to you now that you're more than 8 years in.
Yeah. We turned 9 actually this
Smokes.
summer. So
Now that you're 9 years in,
this is going great. We've been doing really good tonight.
you know what I love about that, and just like side tangent, that's when you're at the age, like a younger age, you always want to be like, no, my actual age is this.
I know.
But then once you get to be my age, our age, you're like, I don't know, round up, round down. I don't care.
When I was younger, I was always like, I'm going to be 25.
Yeah.
And then you're like, why were you just like aging yourself? And now I'm like, I am so close to 30. Yeah.
Yeah.
In my own mind.
Yeah.
Not really, but yes. So more than flowers, back onto that. Absolutely. Our mission is really just recognizing people for their fundamental value as a human and saying, I see you and you matter, and just making space and an effort and intentionality in making connections to individuals in our community who could just use that little spark of hope and that little spark of inspiration. And so we really use our flowers as that kind of our superpower in being able to, that's a reason for the visit, right? It's something very familiar that we can connect over. The flowers themselves might trigger a few memories when we knock on your door, but really the gift in our magic or in our mission is being able to knock on someone's door or spend time working with someone side by side to create a beautiful bouquet. And just seeing what comes out of that, making time and space for conversation, for connection, open-ended questions, maybe a hug, maybe a smile, something like that just goes so far, right? In a moment where you maybe many of your days feel like the same. Maybe you're not feeling a lot of joy in your heart. Maybe you feel lonely. Maybe you're facing mental health challenges. We don't know what we're each carrying, right? But I mean, we're true believers at Hope Blooms that these small acts of intentional kindness can absolutely change someone's day, change someone's week, and ultimately change someone's life. And I think just knowing that someone is there for you, even in just these little small ways, and it's not one of the people that you surround yourself with, I think there's just a lot of power and optimism in that. Mm-hmm. And we're hoping to inspire more moments of mattering, whether that's people participating in our mission or being able to come up with their own creative idea on just how we can recognize each other. I mean, because we're wired for connection. Yeah. And we need each other, right? Yeah. And so what are those points of connection that we can create in a way that feels comfortable and feels soul-filling?
We talk about a trust framework at Tellwell, and you can call it a communication funnel, you can call it a sales funnel, you can call it a marketing funnel. I like to call it a trust framework because I think the cornerstone of all relationships is trust. And the final piece of that is remind people that you love them so that way they remember that they love you too. And I think what's interesting, and as you talk about this idea of connection and community connection, and people just need to be reminded a little bit that there are good people in this world that maybe doesn't broadcast that very often, especially if you watch the news, that there is this, hey, I don't need to be doing X, Y, or Z. It doesn't need to be transactional to be like loved and appreciated. Yeah. And I think that's something that your volunteers do so beautifully.
Yeah. And I think you're absolutely right. I think that it can feel very easy to create moments like that. Because it's easy doesn't mean that it necessarily, like you said, needs to feel transactional. Anything done with intention, you can feel it, right? You can feel it in the moment. It's not just someone asking you questions. It's someone leaning down to your level, making sure that conversation is accessible for you if you are in a wheelchair, or it's someone just arriving to be there just for you in those small moments. And I think they aren't hard to create, right? But you do have to be intentional about that. And like you said, like that kind of authenticity really does breed trust. Just that like instant bond and instant connection you feel with people. And so, yes, our volunteers are very good at that. And I think like just being vulnerable and like opening up your heart to someone. I mean, that is a hard thing to do because you don't know how that act is going to be received.
Yeah.
And that's something that we talk about when we take our volunteers out, or when we train volunteers to come out and do programming with us too, is that like you do have to be a little bit vulnerable, and it might feel uncomfortable, right? But it's like the more that you exercise that kind of very particular kindness muscle, like the easier it gets, right?
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of beautiful moments when you're being intentional, right? And just making space for people.
I love that we're talking about really flowers being an excuse for connection. Flowers being an excuse for that like intentional spark of a relationship and vulnerability. And I'd be curious to talk a little bit more about the people that make that connection possible. And over the 9 years that you have been here, Hope Blooms has really grown into this huge network of like huge-hearted people and organizations. So like hundreds of organizations, thousands of volunteers, all community funded. And I think that like that type of ecosystem is so rare, even in the nonprofit community.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what have you learned about leading a mission that literally depends on generosity?
I think it is being very intentional. I feel like I'm repeating myself here, but also being vulnerable and authentic to not only the organization, but authentic to those individual relationships and to the experience, right? And I think like when you're willing to show up and not necessarily like always be polished and to share your heart. I mean, there's not a lot of times you won't find me crying. I don't know. I just like so believe in what we're doing. And I think like just being willing to be vulnerable and inviting people in to that space and showing up for people in the way that they need, it really kind of creates that trust and really just attracts people to our mission. So it's not just me. It's our wonderful volunteers. It's my teammates who show up with a full heart and just with this like, how can we be of service? Really attitude and perspective that I do think draws people in. And I feel like we are conduits of joy. And it is, I think, contagious. And so when we get to interact with people, we're intentional about trying to make sure that you feel like you're the most important person in the room. And I think that is a good model, something that we try to model. And then I think good is attracted to good too. And so we are very grateful to have so many supporters and volunteers who wholeheartedly believe in our mission, who just want to be also conduits of joy. And so, did that answer your question?
I don't even remember what the original question was.
I don't either.
But I think that's a good reminder that generosity goes beyond finances.
Absolutely.
Right? Generosity is how you're showing up, how you're volunteering, and how you are putting yourself into vulnerable positions to somebody who maybe they're in an assisted nursing facility or an assisted living facility, who maybe doesn't know how to receive that kindness yet because they've spent so long without it. I think one of the other things that as nonprofit leaders we run into is there is an expectation and sometimes an impossible mission to keep up the joy, to keep up the energy. And you sometimes seem like a vortex of joy and energy. And I'm curious of two things. One, how do you give care to yourself to make sure that you can show up for others? Which probably leads into the second one, which is just how do you keep that energy alive?
Yeah. Well, I think kind of circling back to something you just said that made me think of this, but I can't recite right now because I can't remember it. But it is also not about us, right? And so I think that is also something that attracts people to the mission too, is it's about you as a volunteer and the contributions you're making. It's about you as a supporter and being the bedrock and that foundation of our mission. It's about you as a recipient and whatever you need in that moment. So it's not about us. Although I do think we're fairly fun people, though. I will say that. But I mean, the thing that fuels me is I just want to love every single person in the world. I just want people to feel loved. And so the mission itself fuels me for sure. But spending time with my favorite people outside of work absolutely refuels me. And because I believe so deeply in the mission, I mean, I do try to put forth, and not every day is obviously my best day, but I try to put forth the energy that aligns with that. And that's because I do authentically feel like that in the moment. But it is tiring sometimes, right? Like at the end of the day, it's like I've given it, I've given it my all. And so when I come home, I do need some quiet time, because being with people all day long is in giving it your all. That does take your energy out a little bit, but my energy is put back in by spending time with people that I love. And what was your second question? Maybe I'm not remembering, and then it's just I just start again and
just start again.
Because I forgot for the first.
So okay, let's pull on that string a little bit, though, because one of the things that you said in there was that you fundamentally believe that everybody deserves love and everybody should experience that. That is, I don't want to sound cynical, that's not normal in the world that we live in right now, where there's so much divisiveness.
I think it's divisiveness.
There's so much of that. And there's so much like jockeying for position on who deserves what and when and how and where. And so I'm curious, like, where does that like belief that everybody needs to experience love and joy, where does that come from?
I think it just, I don't know, other than I guess I can't think of a good reason why not. And so I just, if I could fix the world's problems, I would. But I think that's the thing with our mission, is that the beauty in it is the simplicity, and that there are big, complex problems in the world that take the most brilliant minds to make even incremental changes. But I do believe that we individually, us as people, individuals, have the power to have a positive influence in someone else's life in any given moment, if we just take the time to do it. And so that is honestly how I feel like we can all change the world, is just by being a little bit kinder to one another and being intentional. And to do that as many times as we can on a step and repeat, not a copy paste, but, and there are plenty of days where I struggled to do that, or I'm not intentional in that, but to just make it part of your lifestyle and in trying to extend that act of kindness. So just opening the door for someone, because it would take honestly 2 seconds. You don't have to go out the door as quickly. You can see out of the peripheral someone coming up behind you and stuff like that. And so I guess I don't really know where it comes from, other than I don't have any other reason to believe anything else. And
so I love that your title, one of your titles, is Chief Joymaker as well. But you've also got this background in storytelling and marketing strategy and project management, which is how you and I first met, was around project management. I'm curious, how do you balance like the heart-led side of Hope Blooms with the planning and the structure that it takes to take like a fun little side hobby and make it into a full nonprofit that employs full-time staff and has this big mission and these big goals? How do you balance that?
That is a great question. I think, I mean, our journey was a little bit unique in that, like, I didn't set out to say, I'm going to found a nonprofit. We served the mission first and then kind of have backed into everything, which creates its own set of challenges for sure. And we've grown a lot, and there's still many ways that we can continue to improve and serve our community. I mean, I kind of feel like in many ways we're just arriving to some of that big stuff. I mean, we have obviously gone through a lot of growth and a lot of just expansion in our mission through our programming and becoming a nonprofit and all of that. And I would say a lot of it was grit and leaning on people and just feeling comfortable with, I do not have to have all the right answers. Everything is figure outable. Is that how you say it?
Yes.
Yeah. But leaning on people who were drawn to the mission, that if I wasn't an expert in a certain area, and that's also something like being vulnerable and being able to say, I'm not an expert in all of these areas, but just getting some of the right people in the room is a huge head start, right? And so as we were growing and stuff, just being able to get the right people on the bus, not only like from those that now have joined our team, to whether it was our board of directors or just different mentors I've had, and be able to have other people to lean on and to not feel like alone, and also to not feel like I have to have it all figured out, I think really kept me going. And then, I mean, it can be, like I said, like it's just headstrong at times. And I think that also helped to just like, because it is hard. I mean, you have founded a very successful business, but I mean, there's a lot of long days and a lot of hard times in that. But I think like when you know you're meant to do something, right? I mean, that can help carry that through. And then I feel like if you can make a difference in the world, like you should try to do that. And so,
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Right? So I think the interesting part is sometimes I think you gloss over this power that you have to be able to see something in, like a project manager does, to say, here is like the big problem and here are the individual pieces, right? And those pieces all need to fit together. That is a superpower that I think sometimes we take for granted, right? And so I'm curious, do you have any advice for the fellow folks listening who are nonprofit executive directors, fundraisers, et cetera, on how do you like zoom out a little bit to identify what is the problem that we're trying to solve,
right,
versus just being like going straight into the like, how do we get it done?
Yeah. I do think that it has been like, that part has been, I would say, like more challenging for me, like in respects to like Hope Blooms versus like other positions I've had, just because I think you're like so close to it. And so being able to invite other people to be a part of that conversation has definitely been a valuable asset. Whereas I think like in my previous roles, it was easier to see like a bird's eye view, I think, right? Because it's just, you're just not in it the same way. Yeah. And so I guess my advice would be surround yourself with awesome people, and who not only are willing to say, this is, hey, this could use some improvement, or are we thinking about this? But also who are also supportive at the same time, because it's one thing, I think, to be able to offer 1,000 different ways to potentially solve an issue, but also to feel like loved and supported at the same time, I think is something that is also incredibly important, especially when you're doing mission work, right? Where you're giving a lot of your heart and a lot of your efforts are extended outward. Like you need that something has to be filling you up too, beyond the mission itself.
I love that. I think there's like an interesting kind of like sub conversation in here too about, are you familiar with Kim Scott and her radical candor work?
She sounds amazing.
She's super cool. Basically, this idea of radical candor is that care deeply, care personally, so that way you can challenge directly.
Right.
But what's interesting is that if you just read it kind of surface level, what that oftentimes is giving people permission to do is to just like point out flaws and then hide behind this idea of, I care about you as a person. And what's great and what you're talking about is really this idea of going one step deeper than that, to have people that surround you and can understand some more of the context around it. Mm-hmm. And then they can create a little bit more of an informed, candid conversation.
Right.
And have it rooted in care and have it wrapped in care. And that's not the same thing as what she refers to as the shit sandwich, right? Where it's like compliment, criticism, compliment. It's not that.
But you're doing great.
But it is. It does feel different.
Yeah.
And like you can take criticism and you can take ways to improve when it is truly rooted in love.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that is something like you definitely try to do with your friends and your loved ones and your kids. And so that kind of philosophy, I definitely think needs to be translated in other areas of our lives as well. So,
amen. Can you share a recent moment or story that reminded you why this work matters?
Oh, there are so many, Max. I often go to some of my favorites, so I don't always want to repeat the same story.
There's just like we can cut this part out. You can take a moment to think, right?
No,
like
I have one that comes
awesome.
right up to mind. So I was visiting this beautiful woman named Mavis, and we were in a senior living community, and she had only been there for about 6 months, and we were visiting her through our Pedal It Forward program, which is where we do surprise deliveries. We go door to door and people don't know we're coming. And so we go to an assisted living community and bring a team of volunteers, and we knock on everyone's door and say, "Hi, Mavis, we have a special delivery for you." And I happened to run into Mavis. I didn't get a chance to knock on her door, but I ran into her in the hall, and she had a calendar in her hand, and she had difficulty seeing. And so she just said, "Would you read this to me?" And we had just gotten off the elevator with a full cart of flowers. And so I was reading to her about the day's happenings. And I was like, "Oh, it's 10 o'clock right here. It says Hope Blooms is going to be here." I was like, "That's us." I'm like, "We brought you some flowers today." And she was just immediately taken aback. And she just started crying and just had said, "I've been feeling so lonely." And just like, we just embraced each other, right? And it was just like, it couldn't have been a more just like authentic interaction. It was almost as if Mavis was just waiting for us, right? Like just waiting for someone. And so I just said, we brought these flowers. Do you want to pick one out? And so she picked out a bouquet, this big, beautiful bouquet of all kinds of beautiful white flowers. And I said, "Would it be okay with you if we went back to your room and visited for a little bit? I would love to talk to you." And so we did. So we went back to her room and talked to her, and I sat there with her, just hand in hand, knee to knee, and just listened to her and listened to her share how she was feeling that day. I listened to her tell me the stories of her 2 late husbands. I listened to her tell me all about her family and just all about this big transition in her life, moving after her husband passed into an assisted living community where she didn't know anyone. Yeah. And so it was like Mavis was waiting for us. And so it just warmed my heart so much. And we'll go out with a team of volunteers, and it's maybe like we're there for an hour and a half, and we were there for an hour that day. And I think I was in Mavis's room about 45 minutes. And that's because that's what she needed that day. Yeah. Right. And sometimes we knock on someone's door and what they just need is a smile. And they're like, "Thank you so much. That's so thoughtful." But there's many times where we knock on someone's door and they want more. And so just making that time for what she needed. And we had a great conversation. I just said, I would challenge you to maybe introduce yourself to someone today. I'm like, we visited a lot of people who were really lovely. And so I saw her later on that day down in the lobby visiting with other people. And I came back to Hope Blooms and I thought, you know what? I'd love to send Mavis a note. So I remembered her room and I wrote her a little note and she wrote me back. And she just was just so sweet in her note. Just said, I mean, how lovely for you to visit people who are lonely, and said, I love you. Please come back. Okay, well, now I have to move in with me.
Yeah, no.
Got weird really quickly. But no, I mean,
That's so sweet though.
But then we went back to visit. And so we end up meeting people as strangers, but like walking away as friends.
Yeah.
And so because we visit places about 6 to 8 times a year, we really get to know people. And so I recently had gone back for a delivery and she wasn't at her door. I was like, where is Mavis? I was just beside myself. I really wanted to visit her. And I saw her like in one of the common spaces, and she remembered me, and she has just turned 90. And she was so excited to see me. And yeah, it was just like this beautiful reunion. And I'm like, we're going to be back again soon. And I want to come visit you. And so, yeah, I think that's just like a really good example of it doesn't take that much to help someone feel whole, even for a moment. And we can do that for one another, whether it's through flowers or a million other creative ways. Or non-creative ways. We can just show up for people and it makes a huge difference.
Incredible. We've talked about flowers. We've talked about people. We've talked about purpose. We've talked about conduits of joy, which I love. When you step back, what do you hope that Hope Blooms teaches to this community?
That's a great question. I think that it's possible to make a difference. No matter, I guess, like how small you may think it is or how insignificant your contributions might be, they're not. No act of kindness is insignificant. And it's so much easier than we sometimes make it. I think we overly complicate things sometimes, myself definitely included in that. But you don't have to have the answer. You don't have to have a big plan. You don't have to found a nonprofit. You just have to be kind and you have to be intentional. And that is what I hope kind of continues to spread in our community. And we live in a really special place. I don't need to tell you that. And one in which that I don't know that Hope Blooms could thrive in a different community the way it does here, because we live in a very generous, big-hearted community, and we're so grateful for the role that we get to play.
Well, we are grateful that you're here. We're grateful that you're in this community. We're grateful for the resource that we have in you and your incredible team that you've built around you, and this really lovely, and I'm going to say simple mission, because if it's simple, it's rarely easy. And I don't think people understand all of the things that go into that. And so I appreciate that. On behalf of all the people that don't see that, I'm going to say thank you so much. And typically we have a couple of final questions, but I think you really basically answered them like in those last two answers. So I'm going to leave us with, Kelly, if people wanted to support Hope Blooms right now, they're like, yes. I love Kelly. I love Hope Blooms. I want to support them right now. How do they do that?
We would just love for you to share your time or resources or generosity with us. And a huge thing, we are 100% community funded. And so head on over to our website and you can make a donation. You can make a donation in memory of someone, in honor of someone, and spread joy to some people who just need a little uplifting in our community. We take recycled food jars. So you can recycle some pint-sized mason jars or recycled food jars of a similar size. That is very easy to do. We have a patio box right outside of our door. More of those donations can be dropped off anytime. We also take donations of supplies like cleaning, like Clorox wipes, paper towels, all that kind of stuff. And of course, donations of time. and love. And so we've got opportunities out there on our website for people to get involved. And also, last but not least, spread the word about us. If you know someone who's having a special event with flowers, or we take flowers from all over our community. And thank you for leaning into that. And thank you for showing up for us, and so that we can show up for other people. We're truly very grateful for it.
Kelly Krenzel, thanks for being on Tell Well the podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for spending some time with us today. I hope this conversation gave you something useful to take back to your work. If you're looking for more resources on storytelling, strategy, and building communications that actually move people to action, head on over to WeTellWell.com. We've got guides, case stories, and plenty of ways to dig deeper. And if you're at a point where you're ready to get serious about clarifying your message or telling your story in a bigger way, let's talk. You can book a planning call with our team right on the website. We'd love to hear what you're working on. One last thing. If this episode was helpful, share it with someone on your team or leave us a review. It really does help other mission-driven folks find the show. I'm Max Kringen. Thanks for listening to Tell Well the podcast. Now go tell your story well, because a well-told story can move your mission forward and change the world.